we're getting into module 3, so we won't do a very heavy maybe introduction, just a slight one, so that at least we are at par with also the module and also the shadowing. So we'll just do an introduction, then we'll dig deep into the module tomorrow and the day after. So for the module 3, we're trying to now get into the actuality of when we say we're doing conservation. When we say we're doing conservation, what does that one entail in terms of what's the connection between what we are doing or what we are learning with what we are doing on the ground? So if you look at module 1 and module 2, you find that we had like a general overview or general attribution of what conservation entails. But then when we look at module 3, it will require us now to think in terms of what is it that I'm doing on the ground and how does that one connect to the application of GIS. So what we will require maybe for you to do, while the previous speaker, Isaac, was talking about the story map. So he was using a case example of Nairobi National Park. And you could see he was very conversant with Nairobi National Park simply because he is very, or he is conversant with that park. So the same thing. So if we want to maybe use the GIS for conservation, to make it more lively in what we are doing, we need to also think with the small maybe project that we are doing back at home and how that one connects with the GIS. So while we are diving in module 2, think of a project that you are carrying out back home, and also now try to associate that with what we will be talking about. So in here, when we talk about, like, for example, we start talking about biodiversity hotspots. Yeah, so it's a word that's quite known by different people, even if you are not a conservationist, but you are talking about maybe an area that has been set aside simply because of the species that are found there. So what we maybe require you for module 2, so that it becomes easy for you to understand how you apply this one in real life scenario. You look through maybe your country history and see where do you have biodiversity hotspots. So then try to work around those to understand why were they established, what's the criteria that was used to set aside maybe a certain site within your country. So while you are going through this, think in terms of what is it that the country is doing in terms of biodiversity hotspots. That way you get to understand if now I was to do maybe a story map of a biodiversity hotspot in my country, what is it that I need to do or use so that I can get to maybe I have a picture that I can show to my colleagues or maybe post in my project web page to show that whatever I'm learning, maybe the GIS is being applied in real life scenario. So in biodiversity hotspots, we talk about the criteria. What is it that the criteria that's being used to set aside? Because you see, each and every country has different ecosystems or different biodiversity realms. But then there are those that get maybe higher priority in terms of conservation. So when it comes to biodiversity hotspots, these are areas that have high endemism, yeah, and also the rate at which the degradation of that area or that habitat is so high that if it's completely degraded, the species in that area goes or is lost forever. So then we look at the different crises. What within your country, you look at what is it that is ailing the biodiversity loss. Yeah, you have to get or dig into some materials and see because for example, if we talk about Kenya maybe the cause of biodiversity loss might be a little bit different from Zambia. So you need to understand what is it that is causing biodiversity loss in our area, or what's the rate at which biodiversity is being lost in my country, so that I'm able to give a solution while I'm using now the skill of GIS trying to solve a certain problem in biodiversity loss. Yeah? So we have different, quite a number of drivers that have been identified, but we have like 4 key of them. But then this does not limit maybe you from understanding within my country or within my region what are the key biodiversity hotspots. Remember, these are from a global perspective, but then from a country perspective, what are the biodiversity or the drivers of biodiversity loss within my region or within my country? Even in some cases within, maybe for example in Kenya, we would say we trickle down to maybe my county. What is it causing a high biodiversity loss in my county? country. So you look at this, then try to evaluate, are these the same that are happening within your country or your specific sites? Yeah. Then when you have, maybe assuming you dig into one, for example, the habitat loss. So then you have to understand what is it causing the habitat loss within my county or within my country. Then when you have this, it becomes easy for you now trying to give solution or try to map the different aspects or the different impacts that the loss or the habitat loss is happening in that area. So in most cases, the habitat loss are caused by quite a known numbers or drivers. One of them is we're talking about land conversion. Yeah, so a certain area, maybe a forest area or a wetland, is being converted maybe for agriculture, maybe for maybe urban planning, or maybe for urban projects. So these are some of the things you need to look into within your country or within your specific area of work, and try to understand what is it that I want to solve using the skill of the GIS. So the habitat loss, in general, when an area is lost, or maybe a forest is lost, a wetland is lost, maybe an ocean area, maybe a river. So what is it that happens? So once the area or the forest is lost, what's the consequences of that? Yeah. So with the forest degradation or with the maybe wetland hydrological change, then the whole part or the ecosystem becomes degraded. And remember, we said once an ecosystem is degraded, it goes away with the services that it's supposed to provide. Assuming it's a wetland whereby we have migratory birds. So if that wetland is converted to maybe an agricultural area, then the whole area, that's where the birds were using that area for feeding, maybe for breeding, that service goes with the degradation of that ecosystem. It's the same we're talking about maybe when you dump a river, the disruption of the services that the river is supposed to provide downstream. So these are some of the impacts, but then you can look into details within my area. What are the impacts of the habitat loss within that area? So again, when you're talking about deforestation, yeah, deforestation can come because of different aspects. So if your country is not maybe a mining country per se, maybe the mining aspect or the mining driver of deforestation might not be a huge driver of deforestation within your country. So you have to look within your country and see within our forest sector, what is it that causing a huge decrease or a huge degradation in our forest. So these are just some of the examples that we are using, but they are not limited to this. So you can trickle down into what the country has identified as the key drivers of deforestation in that country. Again, when you're looking at the urban, maybe or infrastructure development, we can't stop maybe urbanization, yeah, but we can do it in a sustainable way. We can't stop maybe road construction, but it has to be done in a way that has gone through different assessment so that it doesn't have a huge negative impact to the environment. Remember, if we were to develop, then we also have to balance between development and conservation. So you need to understand within my country or within my region, if an area or if a road is being constructed, has it undergone the EIA to understand maybe the pros and the cons, the impacts, the cost and the effect of that maybe road construction in that area. Another one, a major one, loss of maybe habitat is the agriculture. Most of our countries are agriculture dependent. So we can't stop doing agriculture, but we can do our agriculture in a sustainable way. So we need to understand maybe the intensity of the agriculture that's being carried out within our country. How pervasive is it in terms of maybe destroying the habitats that's within our ecosystem? So we need to understand all this, then it becomes easy. So when we try to map the agricultural intensity within a country, it becomes easy for you to give a solution. So a certain area should be marked for maybe a certain crop production, but the intensity of that production of that crop in a certain area has to be to a certain threshold. Beyond a certain threshold, then it means it infringes into the bigger ecosystem services that the ecosystem is supposed to provide. So these are some of the maybe the different drivers. So I've just picked one case, the habitat loss, but you can look at maybe the pollution bit of it, the invasive species bit of it. So what's causing this, and trying to understand the different aspect of the different drivers. But then when we started the course, we talked about the KMGBF, yeah, the targets. So in this session, when we look at what we are talking about, conservation, biodiversity hotspot, so how is this one connected to the GBF target? So when we talk about target 1, it's about spatial planning. So when we do, when we conduct spatial planning on maybe country level spatial planning, ecosystem level spatial planning, then we'll be able to also be addressing issues of biodiversity loss and biodiversity. So that's on target 1. When you look at target 2, talking about restoring the area that has been degraded. So you restore this area because it was degraded, maybe because of illegal activity, because of flooding, or maybe natural causes that can be remedied. So once you remedy this area, then it becomes easier to restore the area that had biodiversity, and you will be able to revive maybe the number of species that were almost gone to extinct, or that were already declining due to the degradation of a certain ecosystem. You look at target 3, then we're looking at how do we, maybe the area that we already seeing as a biodiversity hotspot, how do we continue having that area there, the conservation, the 30 by 30. We're saying we want to ensure that all the areas that hold huge biodiversity bank, we need to retain them, so that because of the different services or the ecosystem services that they continue to provide for us. So these are some of the connections. So whenever we doing the module 3, try to link whatever you are doing with the different targets, and also trying to link whatever you are doing on the ground and see how it synergizes with what we are talking about. The module 3 will be talking about maybe a practical on tracking environmental crimes. That will be discussed deeper. So, but before we reach there, maybe tomorrow, think of within your country, what is the most pervasive environmental crime that you want to map using the GIS. So when you understand that, then it becomes easy for you trying to understand or trying to apply the skills that you learn in GIS. And maybe the final product that you'll be submitting is not a random or a haphazard quiz, but something that you can also portray to maybe your agency on. That's the solution that we think should be the most appropriate, trying to solve a certain problem. So that's the introduction bit of it. So we will dig into module 3 deeper tomorrow and the day after. So stay tuned. I think that gives you an overview of what we expect to do in our module 3. So I will not take much of your time. I think that's what we wanted to give you or take you into speed, and then maybe we'll catch up tomorrow and with more question and answer come tomorrow. Thank you.